Okay, um, here we are in the A320, and I'm going to do my best to go through the MCDU here and talk about what I think are important aspects for us and things that we probably don't need to do. So I'll start with the menu switch. There are a lot of things on here that I don't think we have to worry about. However, under options, there are a few here. So doors is a typical way that airliners use their FMS to let you interact with the doors. So you can see here I've got my left forward cabin doors open, so I could close that. The other thing that are interesting here is the external controls. So this is often how you'll hook up the ground power unit, air starter, air conditioning, ground chucks, so any things that we want to use there. This could be an option for that if we're not going to use a different interface for it. If we have other interfaces, I don't think we need to do anything here. Fuel is a way to sort of instantaneously change your fuel for your flight. So set that to 5,000. Here you see it's 5,000 kilograms. Set to 10,000. It's 10,000 kilograms. And payload. So here you'll see the cargo compartments are all empty right now. I have 2 crew members and no passengers. Super convenient way that most of these modules work is that they'll sort of auto-distribute things for you. So pretty much the lowest zero fuel weight we can get on this A320 is about 43,000. Say I set this to 55,000. You'll put some cargo in, and it'll distribute some passengers. I can also override any of these individually. So maybe lower my cargo, which lowers my overall zero fuel weight. Maybe I want my passengers to be more front loaded for a better CG, for example. I can do things like that. And it gives me a fuel weight of 55.4, and it means my gross weight is about 65 because there's 10,000 kilograms of fuel on board. I think those are pretty much the only things I would worry about here. Maybe the units one. This is often how you switch between kilograms and pounds, between inches of mercury and hectopascals, but I'm not sure if we're giving folks an interface for that, Fahrenheit, centigrade, etc. The next pages I'll go through are using the acronym that a lot of pilots use, which is DIFRIPS. So sort of the essential pages that you make sure you check with this mnemonic versus data. There's a whole bunch of stuff here in data that I don't think we need to worry about, but there are a couple that are probably interesting. So for aircraft status, it's a great place to list whatever our current nav database is. So as our NavBlue stuff updates, whatever our current AirX cycle can be exposed here. The other thing is closest airports. We already implement this in a lot of our modules in our Garmin, etc. So this is where we can put it in the MCDU to find nearby airports. Gives a distance, the bearing to it. If you're in flight, it'll give you the time it would take to get there. I don't think there's anything else we really need to worry about on the data page, including the second page here. I don't think we should worry about any of this stuff. The I in DIFRIPS is initialize. So if we're going to put in our own flight plan, or even if we're just making sure that we're set up for the airport we want to be at and where we're going. So right now we're at LOWW in Vienna, and we're going to go to EKCH, for example. So I can put that in there. Don't worry about this company route. I don't think we're doing alternates, so I don't think we need to worry about putting anything in the alternate. If when we do our flight plan in our opening UI, we could populate this automatically with the flight number that we put in. I don't think we're modeling cost index, so I would hard code this to 20. And if you know like what, you should be able to put in the altitude, cruise level for your flight, and then it calculates what the temperature is. I don't think we need to worry about any of the other things on this page, and we'll come back to the second page later in the acronym. F in diffrip is flight plan. So we come to flight plan. Right now all it's showing in it is LOWW and EKCH, because those are the ones we put in. We have a discontinuity in between them because there's no actual flight plan going from one to the other. This is showing the altitude of the two airports, and then we have end of flight plan. So we should be able to manually input flight plan information. So for example, I can click on this. Oops, sorry. I can type Lanix, because this is going to be a waypoint on the way, and I can put it in there. Then I can click on it again, and then I can get the airways. I don't think we're doing holding or enabling as the alternate or any of this stuff. I'll talk about new destination a little bit later. That's probably something we need to put in there. But right now we're just sort of entering this in the LatRev page. So I can go to airways. Now I get the VIA. So if I put 858, that happens to be an airway out of Lanix, and I can take it to HDO, for example, and then I can insert this. And you'll see, pop up here and open up our flight plan a little bit further here. So here's Lanix, here's HDO, and it automatically put the intermediate waypoints that are along L858. So Lanix, take L858 to OKF, to BLM, to Ryzik, to Ulnip, and to HDO. And now we have a flight plan discontinuity because we don't have anything after that, so it just ends. And then we have our destination airport right here. The other things we do here in the flight plan, you'll see right now it just says LOWW. So if we click on that, we should be able to set up our departure. Let's say we're going to take off on runway 11. It's going to automatically put in the ILS for us for if we had to do an emergency return. And it brings up the SIDs that are available. So let's say we're going to take Land 3 AR. Oh, you put that in right there. So now you'll see LOWW 11, 580 feet, and these waypoints, which have now been entered down here. So if I zoom in closer, you can see that we now have this standard SID that takes us out to and connects us to our first waypoint, which is Lanix right here. So those are these waypoints, and if I move up through them, see, it eventually connects us to Lanix, HDO, flight discontinuity. Let's say my flight plan told me I was going to do my arrival into KCH. We're going to do the ILS to 4 left. Let's say we weren't going to fly a star in. I can input that now. And now you'll see it's EKCH 04 left. And now after HDO and the flight plan discontinuity, you'll see we have this approach programmed in right down to the runway, and then manual after that. The other thing we could do here is if I zoom all the way out, you'll see we have this break right here. I could say, hey, what we're going to do is after we leave HDO, let's just go direct to CAS. So I'll hit clear. I'll clear this discontinuity, and then Insert that, and now my flight plan is continuous. The way this plan knob works right here, if I go into plan mode, is it centers this at the zoom setting I have on whatever waypoint is here. So as I move up through the waypoints, you'll see it steps through this flight plan, so I can kind of check the whole thing out, see how it works. So Bullnip, there's HDO. We know the very next waypoint is CAS, which is over here for our approach and landing, right there. So those are some of the important things on flight plan. If on the way there we decided we didn't want to go to EKCH anymore, we were going to divert somewhere, the way you set a new destination is you click on one of your points, and then here under new destination you'll type in where you're going to go and plug it into here, and then when you go back to your flight plan page, it will now be the destination, which you can then click on and then set up an arrival. So that's the way that you set up a new destination. Next in diffrips is the radio nav. The way this works is it will automatically set up kind of the nearest or most obvious navigation aids to where you are when you're getting ready to take off. You saw that that ILS is the one that got put in the flight plan. When I said I was taking off from runway 11, it put in the ILS to runway 11, so it has automatically put in that frequency. So it's put that in the radios, and I'd be able to easily use that if I had an emergency and had to come back. That's the course of that ILS, so it's loaded that whole ILS in there for us. You can at any time just put in different VORs for Nav Radio 1 and Nav Radio 2. These switches right here is Radio 1 and Radio 2, so if you have that over to VOR, you'll get a bearing pointer on here that points to that, kind of like the bearing pointers that we have on the Garmin. You could have that one point to the VOR for Nav Radio 2, or if you have an ADF in 1 and or 2, you can switch this thing to the left or this one to the left, and you can get bearing pointers to those ADFs. And if they're centered, the bearing pointers are off. So now I have a bearing pointer that points to FMD. And you'll see bearing pointer 1 is VOR1, FMD, which is 3.8 nautical miles, back behind me. So that's it for radio nav. Next in diffrips is init page 2. So we already did init page 1 where we put in our to and from our cruise altitude. Page 2 we get to with the arrow. And really the only thing that's that important here is the zero fuel weight. Here in FS Labs I can just double click on this and get my zero fuel weight, and it will automatically plug it in, but this 55.4 is basically this 55.4 that we set up here when we set up our payload. So for us, I would say maybe we should just auto-populate that and not really have any of this be user interactable. I think that would be fine. P for diffrips is perf. So this is going to give us our takeoff performance here since we're on the ground. We're in this phase of flight. It's runway 11 because in the flight plan I put in runway 11, so it knows that it's runway 11, and it knows how long runway 11 is, so it knows what these speeds will be, because these V1, V2, VR, these are based on the length of the runway. And it will also show us our F speed, so that's flaps 2, min speed, slat retract speed 194, and clean, which is green dot speed, 210. Transition altitude, which is 10,000 feet, or it's 18,000 feet in the United States, and it varies in other places. I don't know if we're going to allow users to input that or not. That's where you would put that in. We've got engine out, acceleration, thrust required acceleration. I think we're just sort of hard coding this to 1500 feet. Here's where you would put in your flex temperature. I think we're just going to hardcore our flex temperature to be basically 95% thrust. So we'll probably just have something hard-coded in there or not make that user interactable. Your configuration is probably something we need to be able to put in. So we're going to take off with flaps 1 is the most common one. But that's where you enter it. Also on our payload page, you'll see that at our takeoff weight, we have a CG of 14.8. Looks weird. There we go. Just re-put that in. It got messed up with some of the stuff I was messing around with. So gross weight 64,000 pounds with a CG of 26.4. And if I come down here, you can see on our wheel here, 26.4 is, I don't know, around here. It's pretty close to what we have this set to already. So if I set that to 26.4, my trim is set for takeoff, and it's also about 0.5 up. So what I would do in this is I would do slash up 0.5, down would be DN. I can put that in there, but I don't think that we're monitoring the CG or the takeoff trim quite in that much detail, so that might not be something that we have to implement. And so that's the perf for takeoff. S in diffrips is secondary flight plan. This is where if you want to pre-program a flight plan to your alternate, so it's really easy for you to change over to it, or there's some other reason why you want to have a different flight plan that you can easily get to, you would program it in here. I don't think it's something that we need to do, so I wouldn't worry about implementing this page at all. So that's the diffrips one. So I took us through menu, data, init, flight plan, radio and navigation, init page 2, perf, and secondary flight plan. So for these other buttons, we'll talk about those. So ATC COM, I don't think we need to implement anything here. This is where you can go in and like download your flight plan, get a load sheet, different things like that. I don't think we're implementing any of that stuff, so I don't think we need the ATC COM menu at all. Progress. This is the page that takes us through our different stages of flight. I don't know if we need to put anything in here. This is telling us that we have our GPS has enough accuracy for us to fly certain kinds of approaches or certain kind of RNAV procedures. This is telling us what our cruise altitude is. Later when we're flying, it will tell us what our optimum is and what our maximum is. So we'll know how high we can fly, but I don't know if we're going to be calculating that. At any time, we could put in a waypoint here or an airport, and it'll always give us a direct bearing and distance to it. Not sure we need to put that in if that's not something we're going to be implementing. So I don't think there's that much here that's absolutely necessary for us. And fuel prediction is exactly what you might estimate it is. It's while you're flying, and it's estimating when and how much fuel you're going to have when you get to your destination. And I don't think we're calculating that, so I don't think we really need to do anything on this page. So we probably don't have to program anything here. Direct, I think we do need. So this is how we go direct to a waypoint. By default, it brings up a blank one here where you could put in any waypoint in the world if you wanted to. But it also gives you this list of your flight plan waypoints, which you can page through. So This is the flight plan waypoints that are in front of you that you haven't come to yet. So it's pretty common for ATC to, clear you to be able to skip some of these. Hey, you're doing great. Why don't you proceed direct to so-and-so? Then you could just select that waypoint and then insert it, and it will set your navigation and your flight plan so it's taking you direct to that waypoint. It will delete all the waypoints that were on the way, but it keeps the rest of your flight plan after that. So it really just lets you skip some waypoints and head to a certain one that's already in your flight plan, and then you'll proceed on your flight plan from there, all on autopilot. Or you can just put in any random waypoint and head to it. Airport is another button I don't think we need to implement. This is sort of a shortcut to your flight plan page, and it takes you to the airports that are on it. So we have our destination airport, and we have our takeoff airport. So you could just hit the flight plan button, and you could just page down, or when you hit your flight plan button, both of these are already there, so you could easily click on either one. So I don't think this is really giving us that much. So I wouldn't worry about implementing airport. So that is MCDU on the ground. And then I will make another video to talk about some of these, how they're different in flight. Hope it's helpful. Talk to you later.